and today's movie is set in the future of 2027 where women have become infertile and no children have been born for 18 years. This has led most of the world's civilization to collapse and only Britain stands as a functional civilization. And Britain has decided that all immigrants should be illegal and they've been rounding them up and putting them in horrible camps before deporting them. We meet our protagonist Theo, a former activist turned bureaucrat, as he was watching the news at a coffee shop, and it was announced that the youngest person was killed today, and as everybody starts crying when they hear the news, Theo doesn't even seem to care. Just after he leaves the shop is blown up by a bomb and it's suspected that the fishes are behind the bombing. The fishes are a rebel group who are trying to stop the deportation and start a revolution of their own. The next day, Theo gets kidnapped by the fishes and they take him to their safe house, and their leader reveals herself to him, and she's apparently his ex-wife Julian. Theo and Julian have not seen each other for nearly 20 years after their son Dylan died of the flu virus, and since then, Julian has gone back to being an activist and now she's risen up to lead the fishes. Julian explains the fishes were not responsible for the bombing of the cafe the previous day and that they believe the government to be responsible so as to frame them as a terrorist group. Julian then asks Theo to get her transit papers for a refugee, and she offers him an initial of £5,000. Theo hesitates at first, knowing the risks, but he agrees to do the job. Theo visits his cousin, who's a high-ranking official in the government, and is able to get the papers by giving him false information. Luke, Julian's second-in-command, then offers him more money to accompany the refugee until they pass the checkpoints. Later that day, Theo, Julian, and Luke meet up with the refugee Key and her companion Miriam, and they drive through a forest road and they get ambushed by gangs, and Julian is shot and killed, but the rest of the group manages to survive. The police arrive at the scene and they try to stop the crew, but Luke shoots at them and they escape the police as well. A short funeral is held in the forest for Julian, their leader, and Theo is heartbroken by her death and he cries in the corner alone. They then drive to a safe house on a farm where the fishes gather. Theo is put on full surveillance as the group doesn't really trust him yet. Later that night, he is called upon by Key and she reveals to him that she's 8 months pregnant. She also tells him that Julian told her that she could only trust him, and Theo was visibly shocked and didn't know what to say. He wasn't shocked by what she said, but what he was seeing, as he hasn't seen a pregnant woman in 18 years. The fishes elect Luke as their next leader and call a meeting to decide what to do with Key. Julian's plan was to send Key to the Human Project, a collection of scientists based in Portugal and dedicated to restoring human fertility. But the plan is on hold since only Julian had that contact with the group, and now that she's gone, nobody can contact them anymore. Theo advises to make the pregnancy public, but Luke argues the government would take the baby and use it for their own ends. Luke gives the final decision to Key, and she decides to give birth to the baby at the farm and then go to the Human Project. Later that night, Theo wakes up when he hears noises outside. He goes outside and he overhears Luke talking to two men that have planned the attack and killed Julian. Luke and his group wanted to keep the baby to help their revolution, but Julian objected, so they had her killed. After hearing this, Theo quietly wakes up Key and Miriam and tells them what he heard. Key believes him and agrees to escape with him, and they then sneak out of the house and steal a car. As they drive away, the guards notice them, but they are ordered not to shoot so as to not accidentally hit Key. Theo then takes them to his old friend Jasper's house, and Jasper is a guy that lives in the forest, spending his days and nights getting high. Theo tells him Key's story, and Jasper agrees to help them. Using his connections, Jasper makes arrangements for Key to get into a ship that belongs to the Human Project called the Tomorrow. Jasper arranges for his friend Sid, an immigration officer, to help them enter the refugee camp at Bexhill, and from there, they plan to meet with someone that can take them to the ship.
Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button, as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap.
The next morning, the group are awakened by a home alarm, and when they see the security feed, they discover that the fishes have found the home, but the alarm was put further than the house, so there was enough time for the group to escape. Jasper gives Theo his car and tells them where to find Sid, and Theo wants him to go with them, but Jasper refuses and tells him that he would be okay. Theo and the group then make it up the road, and Theo watches them from afar as Jasper refuses to give the fishes any information and is killed by Luke. Theo Theo then drives them to a nearby abandoned school to hide out and wait for Sid. And while waiting, he gets to talk with Miriam, and she tells him that she worked as a midwife in the days before the infertility happened. How it happened was, in the last few days, women started having miscarriages until there was nobody left who was pregnant. And now, humanity has another chance with Miriam, who wants to do everything she can to bring this child into the world. Shortly after their conversation, Sid arrives and takes the group to the Bexhill refugee camp, and then puts them inside the bus which will take them inside the camp. While they were on the bus, Key's water breaks as she goes into labor. Miriam coaches her through the contractions, but when they reach the gate, the guards enter the bus to pick out the people that they don't like. When the guards get to Key and Miriam, she distracts them by screaming religious stuff and she's taken off the bus, and this protects Key, but Miriam has possibly given her life away. Finally, Theo and Key manage to enter Bexhill and meet a woman named Mariska who takes them to a safe room, and right as they enter the room, Key goes into full labor. And since Miriam wasn't around, Theo delivers the baby, and it was a beautiful baby girl. They spend the night there, and in the morning, Mariska and Sid return, and he tells them that they need to go now because an uprising by the refugees has begun, and the government has sent the military to stop them at all costs, which will lead them to be targeted as well. Just before they leave, Mariska warns Theo not to go with Sid, but Sid puts his gun on Theo and orders them to follow him, and Sid then reveals that he's seen Theo on the news the night before, and Theo is apparently suspected of killing the police officers that Luke killed, and the police have offered a large sum of money for the person that captures him. But before Sid gets his way, Mariska knocks him out from the back and they manage to all escape. She then takes them to a safe house with her group and tells them to wait an hour until the boat comes to take them to the tomorrow ship. As this is going on, the uprising was heating up, and the military have come with full force, killing everyone they find and destroying buildings. The fishes have also broken into the camp and are now looking for Theo and Key. After an hour or so, Theo and Key run through the camp but are quickly found by Luke and his men. He takes Key and her baby and leaves Theo and Mariska to be killed by his men, but just before Theo is shot, the military arrive at the scene and a firefight erupts between the fishes and the military. Theo escapes during the chaos and goes looking for Key and sees Luke getting into the building and follows them there. He goes up the building and finds Key hiding as Luke is shooting back at the soldiers, but when he goes to grab Key, Luke points his gun at him and he tells Theo that Julian was wrong and that the only way to win is through a violent revolution. But just then, a bunch of stray shots come through the window and kill Luke. Amidst all the chaos and noise, the baby starts to cry and everyone in the room starts to stare at them. A lot of people start to pray as they're witnessing a miracle, and Theo and Key walk through the people, and when they get to the soldiers, they also stop, taken back by the crying baby, and the commander orders a ceasefire until the two get out of the building, but the fighting resumes shortly after as Key and Theo go to Mariska. She's apparently found them a boat, which will get them to the rendezvous point where the tomorrow ship will be arriving at. Theo and Key get inside the boat, but Mariska refuses to go with them and she pushes the boat out into the ocean. As they leave, they witness fighter jets passing by and bombing the entire camp. Theo and Key make it out to the rendezvous point, and as they were waiting, Key sees blood in the bottom of the boat and starts to freak out, thinking that it's her baby. But Theo calms her down and tells her that it's him, revealing that he's been shot in the stomach during the firefight. And before he dies, Theo shows Key how to properly burp a baby, and she tells him that she will name her daughter Dylan after his son that died a while ago. Theo smiles before falling silent as he dies. The tomorrow ship also arrives shortly after and takes on Key. And just as the movie ends, we hear children laughing in the background, implying the success of the human project in fixing the human infertility problem. And this is how this awesome sci-fi movie ends. I really encourage you guys to check it out. Also, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment. I promise to see you guys on my next recap. I love you all so much. Bye.